Across Newcastle and the Hunter, 2NURFM 103.7, as we take a look today at some of the things happening in the world of education, or maybe kind of a step to the side from that with our Professor of Education from the University of Newcastle, John Fischetti. And John, today we'll be taking a look sort of at something that I know we've spoken about in the past, that parents and grandparents really need to be across if they're not, and that's technology and social media that the kids and grandkids certainly will be very across. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Yeah, this is one of those things now where if the data are true that I read, 94% of all Australians over 12 years old have access to a smartphone.
Oh,
and over 16,
right.
It might be their own. They may not have the internet in their home. They may not have their own laptop. With that comes the issue of the pervasive nature of these social media sites that now become everywhere and what they're doing with the data. Now, over the last few years, you can almost go numb with the number of media, critiques of this. But now, just today in the news, this is not old stuff, we're finding out that Facebook is actually selling the data from kids to vaping companies, alcohol and tobacco companies, gambling sites, and dating sites. Meaning that if you have a teenager or younger that's on Facebook or Instagram, because Facebook owns them, remember, that it's likely your data will be of your child will be being sent to companies that will turn around, and the Facebook or Instagram ads links will be to those kind of sites. I think parents should be really concerned about this.
And it is something that I know that we all see. And if you sort of think in your own life, you might just do an internet search for, it could be something benign. Like say a colleague turns up with a new car and you all of a sudden you want to look at that type of car. So you just do a bit of Googling just to see, right? And then all of a sudden over the next little while, all of your social media feeds will be full of ads for cars.
Yes.
Or renting cars or anything to do with motor vehicles, tyres. And this is just how it is now.
Well, if the microphone is on because you're putting videos on Instagram, which is what a lot of people do, then the microphone actually out of Instagram or Facebook apps is listening. The algorithms then are manifesting it. So if you said blue car, blue car, blue car, there's going to be some ads for blue cars the next time you open up your search engine. That's happening now. I recommend people turn their microphones off. And you might say, oh, that's crazy. It's actually happening also at home if you have any of the streaming services with their boxes that listen to things. Two-way listening is happening now. The other component of this that's really scary is a TikTok, which has taken over where Instagram and Facebook started. You know how cute the videos are where people replay some of the hot stuff that's out there and you do it in your own way. It's really cute. The Chinese government owns it. I don't care if they've offshored the storage of some of the data to Australia or to wherever they're sending it. But in the UK now they found that there's predatory sites that are getting access to that data, and therefore your child may be being preyed upon by really bad people out there. The impact of schools on this is interesting also. In the U.S., there's a case that's going to the Supreme Court about the United States around freedom of speech. A lot of the stuff that happens with the relationships that get played out in social media, disagreements, arguments, posts that shouldn't be right, he said, she said, that used to be normally played out just in the schoolyard, are now being played out in social media. Does the school have the right to intervene? Because it actually is impacting academic performance when kids aren't getting along in school. And actually the school has a right in loco parentis to intervene. So parents need to know that schools may have to jump in if you don't, because some of the things that are happening that kids are doing are playing out now in social media.
Well, if you think, John, the other side of that coin, if schools didn't, if they weren't able to, or just didn't, or just said, look, that's happening, down at the Oval after school,
right,
not our problem, it does feed back into what's happening in the playground, in the classroom at school. So, I mean, if they were able to, if they saw something or were across something and didn't act or weren't seen to be acting in the right way, then you have a problem at school, then the blowback from that will be immense.
And the real issue is, does freedom of speech end at the schoolhouse gate, or does it also pervade there if you haven't done it literally at school? And the answers of courts in the U.S. are leaning closer to it connects. There's ubiquitous. Your social media presence goes with you into school, and if you're behaving really poorly in those sites, you're also guilty in school, even if you haven't done it there. That hasn't necessarily played out here, but I'm guessing it will. Parents, one solution is that you go in and de-identify your child. Don't let their email be out there. I wouldn't have a profile pic of themselves. It might be of your cat. My daughter, for example, who's 30 plus now, she doesn't use her surname. She doesn't have her email. So if you went there, you would only know it's Katie. You don't know anything else about her. And she's locked down where only her immediate friends are there. So at best, you might think about stripping away some of that information. You're giving it away to governments, some of them quote unquote hostile governments, and you're giving it away to companies you don't want feeding back information to your child that are giving them bad choices.
Which is all really a shame, because if you go back to the earlier days of social media, the idea that it was sold as, or how we perceived it was a way just to connect with people and, hey, this is what I'm doing and I can see what you're doing, and it's all a bit of fun. But once the marketing gets involved, once the data harvesting gets really involved, then there is that whole other, some side, some sinister, some not so much, but it just becomes a whole other minefield other than just look at what I'm having for dinner, or here's my cat video.
Right. And, for the addicted, those who can't put it down and can't have it out of their sight, turn it off 20, 30 minutes before you go to bed, leave it out of your room, charge it elsewhere. Otherwise, you're not getting any sleep. And there's nothing worse than any of us if we haven't had any sleep, particularly our 10-year-old.
And they've got to get up early for school in the morning, which is always a chore on the best of days. As always, a pleasure, John Fischetti from the University of Newcastle, talking education and social media with us today, mate. A pleasure. We'll talk to you next
Thanks,
fortnight.
Mark.